Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another video. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but if you do enjoy the content right here on the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button down below if you want to see more of these videos. And without any further ado, let's get into it. So, if you probably already know, and I'm a little late reporting on this, but yes, Nintendo had their Nintendo Direct conference about a week or so ago, and they just announced the Switch 2, which is coming out this June, along with a lineup of games, and people are all confused, they're upset, they're pissed off with Nintendo. There's a lot of things going on with this console, but let's take a look back on how innovative Nintendo has been over the last 20-some years. Now, GameCube, when that came out, that was a revolutionary update to the Nintendo 64, but it had one small tweak to it, and that was the game discs were half the size of regular CDs. And that was just something new for Nintendo, where they go from cartridge to cartridge to cartridge, all the way up to CD. And then they tried their hands out with the CD, and apparently it worked out in their favor. However, certain games that were a little too big at the time for a console like that, they split onto two small discs, games like Resident Evil and such. But it was a pretty decent console at the time. The controller, it pretty much meshed in with how the PlayStation controllers were at the time, and it was a big upgrade from the Nintendo 64 controllers, which I still have a love for in a sense, don't get me wrong. People do like those controllers, but they were a little bit bulky at the time. And then when the GameCube came out, the controller was just perfect for it. The console was online based and everything. I even remember kids going to school wearing these things as bling blings around their neck. But then 2005, 2006, we saw the Nintendo Wii come out, and the Wii was just a revolutionary change for Nintendo and gaming itself, with its motion-based controls, sensor bar that read them. You didn't have to worry about plugging anything in, really. And the games were on regular size compact discs. But it also was a console that was backwards compatible with GameCube games as well. So you could play your GameCube games in the console itself. It had a side panel that you open up, and you could plug in up to 4 GameCube controllers and 2 GameCube memory cards. And this console had well over 1,000 games come out for it within a 10-year period. And it's still a revolutionary console to this day, especially for collectors who collect them and they homebrew or hack them to emulate certain games on it. And then when the Wii U comes out, the Wii U was a little bit more over the top, but it didn't pan out as well as the Wii did. It had a controller-based screen. It was like a touch tablet where you could do certain things on it for certain games. And you could also take games, off the TV and play them on the tablet as well. Now, the console didn't really fare out as much as the Wii did. Sales were kind of down for the console, but people still found a love and found a joy for this console. And I even had one myself. I didn't put too much time into it, but it did have a good library of games as well. And now, even though it didn't fare out as well and didn't last very long, and then of course you had the Switch, which came out around 2016, 2017, and it was still another revolutionary change for Nintendo as their innovation keeps evolving over the years. And the Switch was no exception. You had this tablet that you could play games on, that you could switch from being on TV to having them on a tablet with these Joy-Con controllers that attach to the side of the console itself, and you can detach them. You can connect all kind of different controllers up to it, and it also had an online system base that you subscribe with a subscription yearly or monthly or however you want to pay for it. And it was also backwards compatible for certain games, but not everything. I even own a Switch myself to this day, and they've had some quite a few adjustments and upgrades. You got the Switch OLED, which was a little bit more bigger screen, brighter screen, much more better refresh rate and such. And then you had the portable ones that were on the go, like the Switch Lite, which do fare out pretty well, especially for the kids. And now here we are with the announcement of the Nintendo Switch 2, and it is a big upgrade to the console itself. And here are some of the new features that the Nintendo Switch is expected to have when it launches. It's got a more powerful chip at 4K resolution at 120 Hz refresh rate. It has a more comprehensive online platform. The Joy-Cons are a lot more robust, and they also act as mice. Yes, like a computer mouse. And the Joy-Cons, instead of sliding into the console itself, they are magnetic, and there is a release switch for the controls themselves. So you can press a button, and the Joy-Cons come detached much more easily. So there is no issue with anything breaking on the sides of the console itself. You have faster Wi-Fi and 5G support. You have an internal SSD storage. Much like the PS5 and the Xbox Series consoles, yes, games will run on an SSD drive, which is a lot more faster data transfer. However, coming up to the next part, which is a slot for a slot for physical cartridges, which I will talk about here in a little bit. But when it comes to the memory, you can expand the memory with certain micro SD cards, but they have to be extreme. I think they're called extreme cards. So you can't just get a regular micro SD card with a high storage capacity. You got to get one of those, especially for that console, that have a much more faster data transfer. And I think that's going to cost a little bit more money for people right there, especially if you're in need of more storage for whatever your game library is going to be for the console. And of course, it also has more memory in it. It's got a portable mode, the revamped controllers, as I was talking about. The Joy-Cons act as mice as well. You got a higher processing power for faster load times, which is, once again, with the SSD storage, and it has an improved UI experience. Now, everything that I just labeled off is not even touching the tip of the iceberg with this console. It has a very, very new thing for Nintendo. The docking system, the dock for the console itself is a little bit more revamped now. Just the graphical detail with the games for the console itself. It's got an improved kickstand on the back of the console, so if you take it portable mode, this kickstand can alleviate on the back of it as far as it'll go, depending on your comfort style of taking it portable with you. Another new feature that they did add to the Switch 2 is something called Game Chat. So on your controllers, you will have this little button that has a C on it for Game Chat. It's either C or G, I can't remember. But now when you're playing games on the console itself, you can now connect with up to 4 players, 4 other friends on the console wirelessly or connected through your internet connection, which means you can now see up to 4 people playing the same game or even different games as you're going along. And also another new thing that is coming to the Switch is the Switch camera. So yes, this Switch will have 2 USB-C ports, one on the bottom and one on the top, and mostly not just for charging on the go, but also a port for the camera where you can now video call and video chat with your friends while gaming as well. And you can even blow up their pictures, you can screen share with each other. It's the newest, neatest thing to the console. And I think this is probably the first thing that any gaming company has done when it comes to game sharing. Now, not to say that really, you've got programs on PC like Discord and such where you can share your gameplay experience with other people and communicate with others. But if you don't have something like Discord, if you don't have a PC or whatever, the Switch 2 is doing something new and it's bringing it to the console. And I think that is one of the neatest entries to the Switch that anybody can ever ask for. And of course, they will have a gamepad that is specially made for it, so you ain't got to worry about using the Joy-Cons. It's going to have its own updated controller, including the game chat button to go along with it. When I was talking about the storage earlier for the system itself, it will come with 256 gigs capacity with faster speeds on an SSD drive. Even after downloading certain games like The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and Donkey Kong Country Returns and such, which are Switch games, but that's another good thing. Switch games are compatible with this console as well. So anything that you have on your Nintendo Switch right now, even if it's digital, you can transfer them to the Switch 2 and they are completely playable. Nintendo Switch 2 comes with 256 gigs of internal memory, 8 times the capacity of the Nintendo Switch for keeping your game downloads, save data, and more. The system can also read and write data faster. And also, just like with PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series consoles, if you have a previous generation game, like let's say Cyberpunk, and on the newer consoles, it has an upgrade to the newer console for the graphical detail and such, yes, the Switch 2 will offer that. So if you got Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which was on the Switch, and they have a Switch 2 upgrade for that game, you can install the game, you can download the upgrade for free. So yes, Nintendo is getting into that type of gaming now, you know, where they will upgrade your previous gen games for a more faster, more graphical detail for the console itself. Now, when I was talking about the micro SD cards for the console, they are express cards. I know I called them extreme earlier. I couldn't think of what it was, but they are micro SD express cards. It's going to be a new standard of expandable memory, and this kind of memory card is needed for faster access speeds and to ensure games will run more smoothly. Nintendo Switch 2 is only compatible with the micro SD express cards. If the micro SD cards that you have for the Nintendo Switch do not support the SD card express standards, you cannot use them for the Nintendo Switch. So even if you got games backed up on a regular micro SD card from the Switch, it's not going to be compatible with that card. So there are ways of transferring your games to the Switch 2, probably without even having to download them. I think we will find out more about that as the console is released this coming June. Also, going back to the game chat system with this console, so game chat will be included with any Nintendo Switch Online membership. So yes, there is still a membership that you got to pay for, whether it's monthly or yearly. Now, when the console releases, you're going to have a limited time offer to game chat open access, period. Which means if you buy the console this coming June when it releases, up until March 31st, 2026, Game Chat can be used without a Switch Online membership. Afterwards, a Nintendo Online membership will be required for Game Chat. So if you decide to buy the camera for it and you want to try it out and you don't have the money for Nintendo Switch Online, you can use it for free in a trial period for up to a year. After that, it's going to be included in the online subscription that you need for the Switch Online. But I think that is a pretty cool, innovative thing that Nintendo is trying something new out with this console. It's sleeker, it's bigger, it's brighter, it's faster, and it looks more beautiful than ever. And I think Nintendo did take their time to really work with this and improve on the details that the first Switch already had, especially with bigger Joy-Con sticks, bigger buttons, bigger controller, bigger screen. However, there are some cons when it comes to a console release, and that is, I expected this console to be around $400. Even though the Switch, when it came out, it was about $350 for it, or $400 bundled with a special game. But that is said to come with any console release. And with the Switch 2, this was no exception. That Nintendo announced that this console is going to be $450, or if you want a copy of Mario Kart World that comes with it, you'll get it for $499. Now, that is another thing that I'm going to get into that has people really miffed at Nintendo right now, is the pricing for the games themselves. You're looking at the new Mario Kart, Zelda, Metroid Prime, and all these other games, and it is said that the digital games are going to now cost $80, or if you want the physical copies, $90. However, I would steer clear of the physical copies, and I know there's a lot of people out there that rather have a physical copy of a game rather than digital for many reasons. I myself am one of them, but however, I do not have the room or storage capacity to store physical games. I am more of a digital collector myself. But however, when you buy a physical copy of a Switch 2 game, from what I hear, you will only get the case, and it has a code to enter to download the game. So yeah, they're not going to be installed on cartridges as they are on the Switch, which is a total bummer, which is more likely Nintendo's way of saying, hey, it is time to switch to as a pun, to switch to digital-based content right now, especially if you're saving $10 from buying the case itself, because that's all you're doing. If you're buying a physical copy of a game for $90, you're buying the game itself for $80, and you're paying out $10 for the case just to add in a collection that doesn't have a cartridge to it, and that is a real bummer right there. And another bummer for this console itself, and I know people are also talking about it, is the battery life. Now, for the regular Switch console and all of its different upgrades, like the Switch Lite or the Switch OLED version, battery life seemed to run anywhere from 4 to 8 hours, depending on the games that you're playing or depending on what you're doing on the console. This one, however, has a very disappointing battery life of anywhere from 2 to 6.5 hours. Now, if you're on the go, they probably don't expect you to play this console for up to 8 hours, which I can see that shouldn't be an issue, but people are already complaining that the battery life could last anywhere from 2 to 5 hours. Yes, it is kind of a bummer for a newer console like this, but you gotta figure consoles run hot. They do get hot when it comes to running software on them. Even PCs do. And that does have an effect on battery life and draining the battery life, which is something that, yes, it should be addressed. But however, I'm pretty sure as time will roll on, that they'll probably do an upgrade to the Switch 2 for that. Also, another thing I want to mention is they did introduce blank cartridges that you can insert into the console and copy your digital games to it as well. So now the Switch 2 will have the ability to be able to transfer your data, your game data and such, onto a memory card so you can put it onto another console and take it elsewhere. And there's just so many other features that this console also has. With the game share experience that they are now introducing to the console, where if you have one game that is compatible with game sharing, you can have up to 3 or 4 other consoles connected on the network to that one game. So you can have another Switch 2 on there, you can have the Switch OLED, the regular Switch, the Switch Lite, which is pretty cool. So those games are compatible with all the previous gens, as long as it's something that is game shared. So yeah, aside from all of these neat features, and there is just so much more that you can learn about the console itself and everything that it has implemented in it and what it can do. If you guys want to see more info on that, just go to Nintendo.com and read up more on the Switch 2. Now, my personal feelings about this console. Is it a console that I may plan on getting sometime in the future? I may get it 2 to 3 years down the road if the price happens to go down, or if it is palpable, you know, for me to collect and play around with. However, I am still pretty cool with playing the Switch OLED that I have in my living room. I am also on Xbox and PC as well, so I really don't have money or time to get a Switch 2. But I will say this, if you plan on getting a Switch, don't let the price bog you down too much. $449 for this console is a very reasonable price for everything that it has and everything that it does. However, the gaming prices of $80, I mean, come on. Games have cost $80 and some even cost $90 back in the 1980s and 1990s, and even some well into the 2000s. So why are we all sitting here complaining about gaming prices for a Nintendo console when Nintendo 64 and Super Nintendo games back in the 90s cost $70, $80, and some $90, and it was all based around the publisher and what they were charging for the game. But nowadays, sadly, politics is infused when it comes to something like this, and people are implementing tariffs as an excuse as to why the console costs so much, as to why the games cost so much. But that isn't really the reason. We've had tariffs around for decades, but that is a completely other story for another time. Now, what do you guys think about the release of the Nintendo Switch and the games that they announced for this console? Are you planning on picking up a Nintendo Switch 2 come June? Are you planning on playing it? Let me know. And if you're watching this after the Switch 2 has released, let me know what your thoughts are on it and what games you guys are playing on it. And once again, thank you guys for coming in today and checking out today's video. Once again, please leave a like and subscribe down below if you guys have yet done so. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you in the next one.